Hello, hello, everybody. Ryan Lestrange here. Welcome to Coffee and Prophets. This is the show where we talk about all things prophetic. We talk to prophets. We talk to ministry leaders, entrepreneurs, anybody who is moving in a prophetic perspective. And I am really excited about my guest today because not just a guest, he's a spiritual son. And we'll talk about what that means, how it works. We talk about a lot of different things. So I'm excited. I'm going to introduce him. But first, let me just say again, thank you. If it's your first time here, I'm really thankful that you're here. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel to find other content that I put out. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of those platforms. So go find me, search my name, Ryan Lestrange. I would love to connect with you. And again, please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. When we finish here for the live viewers, we will be going over to Instagram for what I call the after show there on Instagram. And that's going to be a time of just answering your questions. Most of the time when we're on live here on YouTube, we don't get to answer the questions that come in. So we've started doing that on Instagram. We'll do that over there. Hello, everybody. I see comments popping up. That's one thing I love about YouTube. The comments are instant. So welcome, welcome. Hey, let me ask you to do me a favor. Please take a picture. Put it on your Instagram with you, your coffee mug, the screen. You guys have been getting so creative. And I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I had so many men that took pictures. I was really, really excited about prophetic men commenting and putting their pictures. So I want to challenge some of the guys that watch this. Even if you're watching the replay, take your picture, put it on there, tag me in your Instagram story. Hello, Preacher Man George. Hello, Michelle Rucker. Tag me and then do hashtag coffee and prophets. So I'm interviewing people from all over the body of Christ on this show, people I know well, people I don't know well, and I'm going to be interviewing people in business. I think we're going to have a ladies' day on Coffee and Prophets where somebody else will actually host the show and do a ladies' panel. I'm trying to just do a wide variety of people. And I wanted to have my guest on today because number one, he is in my network, Tribe Network. He is a spiritual son. He's got a great church in North Carolina, Farmville, North Carolina. He is hosting an online prophetic conference that I think is going to be the best online prophetic conference going down this summer. And he'll tell you about it. But I also wanted to have him on because he is, his title is Apostle, but he moves heavily in the prophetic. And so I want to talk to him. He is my guest today, Apostle Charlie Howell. Good morning, Charlie. Hold on. I think I've got you muted. There we go. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you guys and to be with you this morning.
I'm so glad that you're on here now. I want to just dive into it. We'll get to your church and letting people know more about you. But you're pretty young in ministry, and you, as long as I've known you, you've been prophesying, moving prophetically. Your church is very prophetic. So I want to start with this question. How did you first become aware that you personally were prophetic? Like, when did it happen? Tell us about it.
Oh, wow. So I remember very distinctly being young. My mother actually is a prophet, and my father's a pastor, so I'm a PK. And the prophetic comes heavily from my mom's side. She's heavily prophetic, and always been drawn to that type of ministry, always had a desire for the type of ministry at a young age. I remember my mom holding prayer meetings and prayer services. And one day I remember we was talking with a prophet, and he began to prophesy to me. I probably was like 4 or 5, and he began to prophesy. He said, "You're a prophet of the Lord. You know, you're called." And since that day, I remember his name, what it looks like. And since that day, it was almost as if everything in the spirit world began to open up. I'm heavily dreamed. I remember as a young child, always having dreams and visitations and dreams coming to pass, very, very vivid. There's probably not a night that I sleep that I don't have like either 4 or 3 to 4 dreams that I can remember, very distinct, what's going on. And so as a child, my mom and father had the privilege of raising a prophetic child. So that was pretty much the beginning stages. Now in the earlier stages, as I began to develop, I began to take piano lessons, and I began to play for my father's youth choir. And as I began to play, the anointing of God would hit the house, and I would begin to sing prophetically, and that is where I realized, prophetically, you can sing almost like David, that you can sing the song of the Lord. And for me, that was an easy way of releasing what the Lord was saying in the house. Now, that's before I begin to prophesy to individuals. That's before I begin to, release the word of the Lord to churches. It was more through music. And even now, one of the hallmarks of our ministry here in Farmville is prophetic singing. That is something that we love doing. That is something that, is the flavor of the house. And it's an easy way of releasing, the song of the Lord. David was a poetic prophet. That's we got the book of Psalms through him. And that is how, I began to grow and develop through songs. So I was pretty much raised in the prophetic through songs and through dreams. And then later, in my teenage years, that's when the seer dimension began to open up, and I began to have visions while I'm awake, like while I'm up. So that's a little bit. I hope I answered some of your questions. Yeah.
Yes. So I want to ask you kind of a difficult question, because I know the background, but I think people need to know this. So you're a PK, you're growing up in a church. Now, I want to try to explain this to the viewers so they understand the nature of my question.
Sure.
I think probably most prophetic people, and I say most because now we've got great churches and great ministries. And this is one of the things we're doing with our Tribe Network and the Hubs Network we're getting ready to launch, is we're trying to assist people in cultivating really great apostolic prophetic churches. We have e-churches, we have digital things, schools of prophets. I mean, so many things that we didn't have 25 years ago. So most prophetic people, prophets especially, will end up having a salvation experience in a church that may not, and again, I say most because we do have some that are phenomenal, but that may not be prophetic in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so in your situation, you were in your parents' church, and let me explain. Your parents were, the church was more of a denominational type of church. Your mother's a prophet, so she was prophesying and everything. But it wasn't like there was prophetic training and cultivation. And I know you because you're one of my spiritual sons. You're extremely honorable, have great relationship with your parents. But God led you really to leave that church and go out and establish the church you did, which was really in the beginning a home base for like a lot of millennials and even Gen Z people. But what was it like, number one, to realize, okay, I'm in my parents' church and I'm gonna have to leave? Because I think like every preacher parent wants their whole family with them. I mean, I've always been that way. Like my wife, my mother, you want everybody with you. So what was it like to realize that and then to handle that? And how important is that? Like, because most people won't have your story of it being your parents, but they'll be in a church maybe with leaders they dearly love, but they realize their prophetic development is going to happen somewhere else. So tell us your story on that. What is it like, and how can people navigate that?
All right. So I would say it like this. So when growing up, my mom is a prophet. However, in the denomination that we were at, prophets weren't trained, they weren't released, nor were they recognized in the sense as a title or that they believe that the prophetic is a gift that you can access. So they didn't release or train or ordain prophets. Okay, so understanding that, I pretty much had to learn on the fly with books, materials, receiving impartation from various non-denominational people. It was now, we were Baptist. However, we were a different Baptist because, you go to some Baptist church, you don't speak in tongues. Well, we spoke in tongues. I remember my dad and them casting out devils, like literally, Baptist preacher casting out devils in church, taking house visits, casting out devils. in people's house. So we were always connected to apostolic and prophetic people. Now this is before there was an apostolic word. Like this is before apostolic was a thing or prophetic was a thing. I remember all of this distinctively. My parents always had, and they still do, have a drawing for the apostolic and prophetic movement. However, they feel called to stay where they are. I don't, all right. So my separation became.
Well, let's interject one thing before you go on, because I think this is important. So your parents are very supportive of you. I've met them. They've come to hear me preach, been at your church. So they're really amazing leaders. But you said something there. They felt led to stay here. I've known people through my preaching career who've come to me and said, I feel to be a bishop in this organization. And I'm thinking I would die. Like, I'm not graced for that. I can't do that. So we have to realize, like, different people have different assignments. I've even got family who are involved in the Catholic Church. I have big disagreements with many things the Catholic Church teaches, but they feel called to be charismatic, spirit-filled Catholics. So that's why I want people to understand, we're not really talking about the family dynamic here as much as we are at the ministerial working. So having said that, continue, because I think this is helping people.
All right. So they felt called to be where they are. And I mean, they have very affluent ministries. They preach, they travel, they cast out devils, they speak in tongues. Both my mom and dad do, they prophesy, now being that there is no like school of the prophets or any prophetic development. However, they have to outsource a lot of things. Like my mom is in my prophetic class, even now as a student in my prophetic class that we have at our church. So it's like, God allowed her and them to groom me for that specific task. And then once that prophetic development was at its peak, then God had to begin to outsource. And I will always, I never saw myself leaving my father's church. That wasn't the word of the Lord. I told God, I'm going to be a prophet. I'm a prophet. I'm not pastoring. I'm not doing any of that stuff. That is for the birds. I even told, actually, there were some prophets that prophesied to me, and I said, you're wrong. You miss God. I am not pastoring no church. I'm not leading no church. That ain't God. I'm going to be in this Baptist church. I'll be the house prophet. And even I didn't even recognize I will. And matter of fact, I would even remember my father allowing me to host intercession sessions. Like we had a midnight prayer. We had all day prayer. We had, we call it the prayer summit. He allowed me to even host prophetic encounters at his Baptist church. So, I was comfortable, okay with being where I was. And then, I transitioned as being the minister of music at his church. And this is about 4 years ago. 5 years ago, I transitioned as being the full-time minister of music. I would play, sing prophetically. Then all of a sudden, it's like one day, all of a sudden, I just felt grieved in my spirit. I would go to church and I would leave so grieved in my spirit. It would just mess my mind up. I mean, I would go and I would say, God, what is irritating me? All of a sudden, people begin to irritate me. The service begin to irritate me. The songs begin to irritate me. I mean, it was just like, God, I felt like a fish, a freshwater fish in salt water. I just felt out of place, out of my element. And I'm like, God, this is not, evidently something has switched on. And it was almost as if one day I woke up and all of a sudden I had a desire. The Bible says, delight yourself also in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And when you begin to seek God, he will give you a desire. He would change your desire. I never wanted to pastor. My mom and dad can tell you that. People say, I said, no, you miss God. And all of a sudden, one day I woke up with a new desire. It was like, oh my God, I feel the desire. I want to pastor. I want to lead a group of people. So like I was still full-time worshiping at my father's church, and I got permission. I said, look, Father, I believe you're doing things honorably. I said, look, Dad, I'm about to start having prayer meetings in my house. So we started having, every Tuesday, we started having prayer meetings in my house, and God began to move, demons cast out, prophetic flow, prophetic function. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, Dad, We're going to go start having service every Sunday at my house, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still going to come and play for your church. And we did that until my couches were out. And I'm like, okay, the couches were out, God. My wife is like, look, baby, look, the couches are out. We can't even sit on our own couches. The living room, dining couches, toe up. You know, when you buy cheap stuff, at the time we didn't have a whole lot of money, praise God. You know, we bought cheap stuff that lasts, you know, a little bit, you know, but, you know, you got people that want to flop in the Holy Ghost and shake, and, you know, the couch broke off its element. And after a while, I was like, look, we need to get a building because we're not going to upgrade this furniture and people still coming to church and wearing out. They shifting in the seat, you know, they flop. They don't even sit light. They just flop in the seat, turn the whole seat up. So we said, okay, we're going to get a building. So we started having service at 8 o'clock in the morning. Then all of a sudden, you know, I had a hard conversation with my father, and which I thought was going to be a difficult conversation. One of the things that I always felt like, you know, with dealing with the prophetic and my father was one of the things God deals with his people. Even when I felt called to preach, I went to my father. I was like, Dad, I'm called to preach. And he's like, why you feel like you called to preach? I said, I want to go evangelize. Then he said, you know, you don't have to be a preacher to do that. He challenged the seed in my heart. After a while, I went to him 2 times. After the third time, after the second time, I said, God, I'm not going back to him no more. You called him. If you want me to preach, you'll deal with him. That's the same thing that I dealt with pastoring. God, you called him. And God know me. I'm an honorable son. And even not just to my natural father, but to my spiritual father I am. And my father says, shut your church down. Look, I'm an honorable son. So one of the things that I said was, God, I'm not going to leave without a blessing. He's going to bless me to leave. He has to. If you want me to do this, you better deal with your man that you called. Because if he doesn't bless me, I'll still be going down there playing for them. And he blessed me. It took about a year. And I would be faithful. Play, shut up outside, speak in tongue, whatever. I'll be faithful. But then I received my blessing. And then that was all I needed, you know, to be released. And I still, you know, I go back now, I fellowship, you know, we still have family time. You know, there's no animosity. There's no, and one of the things I would say this is when I left, I didn't take no people. I'm going to say that again. I didn't take no people. If people would have come from his church to try to come to my church, I would have sent them back. Because you don't build a church off of another man's foundation. And that's something you don't do that. And I left honorably. I didn't try to take no members, didn't want to take no members, didn't want anything connected to their ministry, because God building my church doesn't mean God turning another church down. And I think people understand that, you know, when they're doing that. I think I probably drifted off, but
no, it's good, because I think a lot of people, well, every prophetic person is going to go through a process of trying to figure out, you know, where do I fit? And a lot of times that's going to lead them through some very difficult decisions. So I want to talk more about prophetic, but while we're here in this part of the conversation of you starting the church. So when I came into your life and got around you, of course, as you said, your church has prophetic worship. I mean, really everything in your church, the atmosphere is prophetic. And when we talk about prophetic, there are different flows, as he was saying, there are different realms. And we'll maybe talk on some of that depending on time. But I began to really discern an apostolic calling on your life, that God wanted to use you apostolically. You had started a church from nothing. And I feel that God's going to use you to start other churches. And we began to partner and dream and work together. And so you started coming into an apostolic identity. And one of the things I'm seeing is a lot of prophets and prophetic people start emerging more in the apostolic. Now, one of the things I hate when people think that, okay, I'm a prophet, this is like training ground to be an apostle, because that's really not the fivefold ministry or 5 dimensions of Jesus that he puts in men on women on this earth to then take that dimension of Jesus and impart it to people. So if I'm a prophet, I'm imparting prophetic vision, prophetic sight, prophetic hearing, you know, prophetic training. That's the ultimate highest expression of a mature prophet. Now, we're not all mature. Sometimes we start out, we just give words of knowledge, and that's great. We need those kind of prophets. But the highest level of maturity, in my opinion, based on Ephesians 4 and 11, 12, is actually reproducing the measure of Christ in us, in others. And so I want to talk a little bit about this dynamic with apostolic and prophetic, and, you know, navigating that. And I want to say again, not every prophet is like, you're going to become an apostle. I think in this case, and in nearly every prophet that I have gone to in our network and said, hey, I really see you as an apostle, they've established something. There's been a strong establishing gift. And let me say this, an establishing gift is not just establishing the structure, it's also establishing the spirit of the thing. What do I mean by that? Anybody can start a church. It's a whole nother animal when you start a prophetic church and you're training, like in your town, there's probably maybe not anyone else really doing like prophetic training activation. Maybe there is, and I don't know of them, but it's a very unique voice. A lot of people will start something, and if that thing doesn't change the climate, that thing doesn't change the mode of operations, in my opinion, it's not apostolic, because you can create a religious wineskin and gather people, but true apostles always propel people into a kingdom mindset and kingdom dynamics. So talk to me about what you see as the dynamics of moving from prophetic to apostolic, the synergy between the both, however you want to do it. I just want to talk about that for a minute.
Ask that question one more time. I think you broke up a little bit right in the middle of your question.
I said, I want you to talk a minute about the apostolic prophetic working together, those people who are called to more of an apostolic function. Just let's talk about that dynamic for a few minutes.
Well, I felt, okay, so receiving this apostolic mandate or becoming an apostle, I never felt like I vacated my seat as a prophet. I actually feel like I walked in both offices, or have both gifts resident. Now, the thing for me, and I can speak from my experience, I've always felt, which I've always done for the past 8 years, 10 years, I knew my mandate as a man of God was to raise and train prophets. God always told me that. So when people come into my inner circle, one of the things that I challenge them is to hear the voice of the Lord for themselves. And so I always felt that was my calling. Now, building this church, I knew that God wanted to build a prophetic house. Convocation of the Eagles, the house of the prophets. That's this house. Hub Farmville, convocation of the Eagles, house of the prophets. God, so I knew my mandate was to raise and train prophetic companies. And to do that, and this sounds crazy because like when I first got here, everybody in here was local. And then all of a sudden they came here. Now it seems like it was a big boom. Now everybody is now different various places. So, it was kind of crazy. It almost got like God forced me to be apostolic. Like God took that measuring stick and said, you're no longer going to be stuck in Farmville. I'm going to increase your measure and now mandate you to build and lay foundation in others and also in different leaders and different things like that. I hope I answered your question. So with me, I had to understand the difference of the two. Apostolically, it's same thing almost as when I said, delight yourself also in the Lord and he would give you this hour. It was almost if one day that thing awakened and all of a sudden my mind began to focus prophetically. It began to focus prophetically, but it also began to focus strategically. And it was almost as if now when God gives me something in my spirit or now my mindset start thinking longevity, foundation, strategy, implementation. It was almost if it shifted.
Yeah. And I saw that shift. And I think you made a great point about, so Apostle Charlie's church in Farmville, North Carolina, it's a very small town. And one of the things that I've seen a lot of times, God will send apostles to big cities. God will send apostles to nations. God will send apostles to certain places. But there are a lot of times a strong apostolic church may be a small church. It may be a church in an inconvenient area, maybe a church in a small area. But he said something I think that's very important if we're thinking apostolically for us to know, is that the apostolic always exceeds its borders. And so sometimes you can have a church of 40, 50 people that's an apostolic church, and they'll be going on missions trips. They'll be building Bible colleges. They'll have a sphere or a metron way beyond where they're at. And so if you're apostolic, you're going to see that in your ministry. Now, I want to go into a little bit different vein, and I kind of want to try when we get to the end of this to end up back in the prophetic a little bit. But I want to talk for a few minutes about sonship. I lead the Tribe Network, which you're a part of, and I try to tell people, and I think this is a whole nother subject, that if you join a network, that doesn't automatically mean you're a spiritual son or daughter. This is a very relational thing. It's a God ordained thing. I feel bad because I think a lot of people hear us talk about it and they desire it so much and they may not find that. And I tell people, you may not find on planet Earth the fullness of a fathering relationship or a mothering relationship that meets every need in your heart. You may have to really just press into Abba Father and do the best that you can, because great leaders are limited on their time. Like I can't meet with everybody that wants to meet with me. But one of the things you said earlier, and it's true, is you're a very honorable spiritual son. If I ask you to do something, it's like, I'm going to do it. If I ask you your opinion and you've got an opinion different from my opinion, you will tell me. If at the end of the day I say, but this is what we need to do, we're going to do it. I don't ever have to worry about it. I didn't say hi to Charlie. He's upset. And I've seen that in your ministry, you build very loyal, stable, strong spiritual sons and daughters. I think you probably personally build more sons just because of the level of relationship. So what do you think being a spiritual son or daughter looks like for people? If they're saying, man, I want this in my life, or I'm trying to connect to a leader like this, what does that look like in a person's life?
Well, I think I go back to the question, everyone biblically does not have a spiritual son or daughter. And I think everyone doesn't need a spiritual son or daughter. And that doesn't mean if you don't have an earthly spiritual son or daughter, it does not mean that you're less significant. And it doesn't mean because you have a spiritual father that you're more significant or your mandate is bigger. Because we look at Paul doesn't reference a spiritual father, but we have Timothy who does, but we see more work from Paul than we see Timothy. Elijah, we have Elijah, he doesn't reference a spiritual father, but we see Elisha who does. Now Elisha does more than Elijah, but Elijah did just as much as any of the other prophets. But everyone doesn't have to have a spiritual son or daughter. But if you do, or if you're privileged to have that type of relationship, I think one of the things is understanding this is not a natural father and mother. So you can't, if you got some father or some daddy issues or mommy issues, you can expect your spiritual father to fulfill those natural relationship voids that you may have. And I think that we need to think and have realistic expectations of what that looks like. Now, I say now I have a spiritual son that I've helped raise, like since he was a teenager. So like we have a natural father and son relationship, but we also have a spiritual father and son relationship, almost similar to my natural father and mother. Now me and you, we don't have that relationship because, I have a father, I have a natural father, you're my spiritual father. So I reverence, but I don't have that false expectation that we have to talk every day. You don't have to say good morning to me. Like I just don't, I think some people have bad expectations for leaders, and they want people to feel empty voids. You need a therapist. You may not need a spiritual father or mother, especially if you want somebody to talk to you all times of the day. And if you don't talk to them all time of the day, you mad. You can't support because they didn't greet you. So I think even building people in the house the current church that I'm in, I may walk through the door. I'm not a mean-spirited person. I may walk through the door and not even speak to you. I may keep not even speaking to you for 2 weeks. And sometimes, that's intentional. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'm just going through life, and you got to understand and be secure that this relationship is not based on feelings and not based on emotions. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I feel like you may want to say something.
No, I didn't mean to do that. Actually, what I will say is I think that sometimes you have to know when you are connected to, if you're connected to a prophet or a prophetic leader, they're wired differently. So I tell people, like, this is a big thing when people go to an apostolic church and they want the apostolic church to have a pastoral atmosphere. And that's really another subject.
Yes.
People connect to you based on your gift. If you're a prophet, most prophets, when they preach that I've known, they're very focused on the word of the Lord. And there's different kind of prophets, Shamar prophets, Nabi prophets. They're trying to hear because they get so much of their information spontaneously. So most of the time a Nabi prophet's not going to be talking a whole lot before they preach. Seer prophets, sometimes they're sensing stuff in the atmosphere. So a lot of times I think in the analogy you gave, you come in the building, you're looking into the Lord, looking in the spirit realm. You might not be high-fiving, shaking hands, that kind of thing. And apostles can be the same way. If you're in a church led by an apostle, you're in a ministry gathering led by an apostle, they're very vision driven. They're wired vision. And so I always say, like, for myself, I have to have somebody on my team or people around me who think more pastorally. I have pastored, I can build groups of people, but when it comes to certain emotional impulses and influences, I'm not wired the same because I'm wired for war. You know, I'm an apostle of nations, and that's just the way that I am. So
Yeah.
I think it's so good what you're saying. And I love the point, like, you know, for spiritual sons and daughters, this is really in a rejection issue. You know, like when in my story, when I was 17, really dealing with massive rejection because I had a very difficult family dynamic. Let me say it that way. And God sent me to an older man's ministry, Dr. Norval Hayes. I had nothing in common with him. I'm from the West Coast. He's from the South. I'm 17. He's probably at that time late 60s. I didn't even think this would be a spiritual father. I didn't even know what a spiritual father was. Through the process of my journey, the Lord spoke to me about that. And I just went and served and listened. And, you know, I didn't expect you're going to call me, you're going to have lunch with me. Now, this is such a common expectation that people get offended. And I tell people, like, if you go join a ministry network and the founder is traveling every single week and they've got 500 people in their network, it's just unrealistic to think you're always going to sit and have lunch or have dinner. So I think the viewpoint you're bringing is so healthy for people because we want you to be healthy. We want you to be successful. So continue on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I just think healthy expectations and laying that foundation. Now, if you're not the type, you know, for me, you know, my wife is the pastor. So like the marriage stuff, I feel like I'm about to do something. I don't feel love. Shonda, can you please handle it? I can't like, because I'm just not wired that way. And I think the people, they know that, like when they want that, they go to her. When they need something, they know what, you know, they know what I have. And I think having that conversation and having that, you know, this is what I expect. And I think, you know, if you're entering into a spiritual father or mother relationship, a lot of some older people are just not, haven't been trained. There's no manual for spiritual fathers or mothers. And I think, you know, if you are inquiring of that relationship, to say, hey, I want to sit down and let's talk about what that looks like. That way you won't feel rejected if they don't call you. Some people just not wired that way. And we got to understand it's a spiritual sonship and mothership, fathership is not a natural. So what you're going to get is from the spirit, is spiritual things. And I'm sorry. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. I think this is helping people. And look, let me go a little bit further. I think in my experience, if you pop up in a leader's life, you just pop up, you know, you went to one of their conferences, they, especially in the apostolic movement, prophetic movements, where there's a lot of these networks, you join their network and like you've been there for a week and now you're requesting, you know, 4-hour meetings, 5-hour meetings. I need this, I need that. And again, I'm speaking in this context of preachers and leaders. So it would be look a little differently if you join a church because you might be at a much lower level of maturity. But as another leader joining with a leader, you pop up and the first thing you're doing is you're adding workload onto your leader. That's a very bad sign because what that's showing is that you don't understand the context of that relationship and giving it time and letting God define it. And, you know, a spiritual father can have 10 sons. The relationship will look different with those 10 sons based on where they're at, based on their needs, based on the demands involved in everybody's lives. You throw a marriage on the sheet, throw families. I've seen so many people who have lost their families because of the ministry. And that's a balancing act. So I think what you said earlier, not everybody is going to have a spiritual father-son relationship or daughter-mother relationship or daughter-father relationship. Some of you, you're going to get that directly from the Lord, and you're going to have awesome leaders come in and out of your life through your Christian journey. Other people, you're going to find somebody that really believes in you, invests in you, helps you. Some of you are going to find that person, but you're going to have to redefine your expectation. You know, social media makes it very bad because people see me taking a picture like a selfie. Hey, I'm here with Charlie. Like, oh my gosh, if I could just do that with Apostle Ryan, my whole ministry would explode. And no, not really. It's not going to fix. We always look for the quick fix. And in reality, Jesus is in charge of promotions in the kingdom. Not me, not anybody else. He's in charge of promotions, and it's your character that will keep you. And there's no shortcuts in the area of character development. So I want to do a couple of things, and then I want to talk a little bit about the prophetic, and we'll wrap. You are hosting a conference.
Yes.
And with all the craziness at the time of this broadcast of pandemic and closures and everything, everybody's having to figure it out. And so you've moved yours to online. I preached at it last year. It's called the Shamar Prophetic Gathering, one of the very best prophetic gatherings I preached at all year. And it's online. You have a stellar lineup. So tell us about that. You got a challenge going on tonight for those watching or listening live. Tell us about all that.
All right, so I'm gonna tell you about the 6 days of supernatural release first. If you go on Facebook, type in my name, click on the like page, get the link, click on the link, and then you will put your information in to receive 6 days of daily devotionals that I'm writing, releasing, challenge you, giving you a jump start into the supernatural. Make sure you do that. I'm telling you, it's phenomenal. We have an awesome lineup. It's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of this week, and Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of next week. The Apostle Ryan is going to be there, my spiritual father, Dr. Oscar, Yolanda Perry, Jennifer Ives. She's going to be there next week. Teresa Hawkins, Apostle Tamara McNair. It's going to be crazy. Now, this is all in preparation for what's getting ready to happen for Shamar Online Conference. There's going to be more information to come, but we have a slew of amazing leaders that are confirmed that it's going to be phenomenal. We have VIP sessions. We have, if I start naming names, I'm going to forget somebody. Then I'm going to feel bad. But I mean, Prophet Gals is going to be with us, Prophet Oscar, Prophet Jennifer Ives. I mean, just various speakers, Apostle Samantha Bynum, several. It's going to be amazing. I'm telling you, Apostle Pamela Vanette, Apostle Cynthia Thompson from Florida. I'm telling you, it is going to be crazy. Shamar is going to be crazy. If you like this page, you get more information. We're revamping everything right now. Everything should be ready by Saturday. But I'm telling you, you want to get your VIP, your premium ticket, because you're going to get a special access to a School of the Prophets with myself, Apostle Ryan. Jenny Weaver is going to be preaching. Shout out, I'm going to say it again. Jenny Weaver is going to be preaching on prophetic singing. You want to get that. I'm telling you, it's going to be amazing, as well as several other perks that you're going to be able to get. It's all going to be online. You're going to get worship by Pastor DeMarcus Kelly. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. So you definitely want to be on the up and up about what's going on.
Yeah, so go like his page. So just to recap, there's a 6-day supernatural release challenge going on. He's got devotionals that come to your inbox via email. That's free. That's kicking off tonight. So go on Facebook. So go get his like page. He posted a video on my page yesterday about that. This is in the build-up for Shamar. Shamar is an online prophetic conference. What are the dates that Shamar's taking?
July 9th, 10th, and 11th. July 9th, 10th,
and 11th. Part of it will be live. Part will be pre-recorded. You'll be able to watch it at your leisure. So you might say, I can do the live session, but I'm going to have to watch this huge lineup. So go on his like page and like it. Is very important. So, okay, I want to end with let's do a couple of quick questions about the prophetic, and then we're going to be on Instagram. Everybody, please take your picture, Coffee and Prophets, hashtag it. That Charlie's got his, and then put your tag me on the Instagram story. If you'll put it there, I'll share it. But let's talk for just a minute. So, seers, let's just do like about 10 more minutes of conversation, then we'll jump over to Instagram. Seers, what is a seer? If people say, what is a seer? Give me a quick definition.
A seer is someone who sees in the supernatural what God is getting ready to do. A lot of times when people say, I hear the word of the Lord, we automatically assume that somebody heard a voice, but that's not necessarily the case. Like, one of my heavy functions is actually that of a seer. So a lot of times I see pictures, I see words, and that are those prophets who access the word of the Lord through sight, through their eye gate. Their inner, not necessarily, and it could be your natural eye, or it can be your mind's eye. And I'm gonna say it like this: most people say your imagination. It's your spiritual eye that you see these things through.
So a seer is going to be a visually driven prophet, a visually driven prophetic person. Your gift is going to be visual. Now, prophetic worship. how does somebody get activated in that? If they're a worship leader, you're phenomenal with prophetic worship, the song of the Lord, spontaneous. Is that something you learn? Is it something you get by impartation?
Listen, I believe it's both. I'm sorry to cut you off, Pops.
No, go ahead.
I believe you can learn. The Bible says prophesy one by one that all may learn. So you tell me, if people prophesy one by one, there's a learning component to the prophetic? Yes. Yes, there's a learning component. You can learn how to prophesy, because you have the resident gift of the Holy Spirit on the inside of you. You can learn how to sing the song of the Lord. Just like you learn how to dribble, you can learn how to sing prophetically. And a lot of times, that means let the musician play, and you ask the Lord to give you a song, words. You may even see, even through prophetic singing, don't knock out your vision, because sometimes you may see a picture. You may see,
Right.
acts, and then the prophetic song could be God is getting ready to cut things. You just got to open up. Stop. A lot of times people try to choose what faculty they're going to use in the prophetic. You need to learn how to be open. God is the player. He chooses how he's going to speak to you, and you be open to whatever medium the Lord desires to use to speak to you through.
Wow, I love it. Okay, this has been an absolutely great conversation. People are asking for your Facebook page. I put the exact link there in comments, so you can cut and paste it, put it on there. Any final thought on prophets or prophetic before we wrap this segment?
No, just go and be prophetic. Just go get to a prophetic church, be around some prophetic people. Wherever there's a prophetic flow, you find yourself jumping in that river, because I'm telling you, the Holy Spirit is a prophetic spirit. You are a prophetic being. We were made to speak. We were made to create. And that's where you thrive, in a prophetic house and around prophetic people. I love it.
I love it. Thank you so much. So we're going to go from this over to Instagram. We're going to answer some of your questions there. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please post your photos on Instagram in your story. Tag me. Do the hashtag Coffee and Prophets. Until next time, this is Ryan Lestrange again here on Coffee and Prophets. I'll see you next time, everybody.